The alley they weren't supposed to enter. The rain was falling hard that evening in downtown Los Angeles. Not the kind of soft drizzle that people walked through without an umbrella, but the kind of cold, heavy downpour that slapped the concrete like fists. Thunder rolled in the distance as the sky turned a darker shade of gray, nearly swallowing the last hint of daylight. The streets gleamed with reflections of neon lights, slick with oil and rainwater, while most people hurried inside, looking for warmth and shelter. But 3 boys didn't have anywhere to go. Their names were Javi, Malik, and Elias. They were 13, 12, and 11 years old, each with a face that had grown up too fast. Life had not been gentle to them. They lived in a run-down neighborhood not far from the city's edge, a place where the buildings leaned like tired, old men, and broken windows were patched with cardboard and tape. The boys weren't related by blood, but they were brothers by survival. They shared food, shared secrets, and most importantly, they shared one promise: to protect each other, no matter what. On that night, they huddled beneath an old rusted awning behind a Chinese takeout place. The steam from the kitchen pipes above warmed them slightly, but their clothes were still soaked through. Javi tugged at his hoodie, wringing out the sleeves. "We can't stay here all night," Malik said, his voice low and cautious. "Mr. Chen comes out with his broom if he sees us." Elias pointed down the alley beside the restaurant. "What about there? The old storage building?" Javi squinted into the dark alley. "Everyone knew you weren't supposed to go down that way. Strange things happened there sometimes. Fights, drug deals, people who walked in and didn't walk back out, but tonight they were cold and hungry and tired. Fear would have to wait." "Okay," Javi said after a pause. "Just for a while." The 3 boys stepped into the alley. The puddles splashed around their sneakers, soaking them deeper. The wind whistled between the narrow walls, and garbage cans rattled as if something alive had just moved behind them. But they kept walking, their eyes sharp, their steps quiet. They passed a dumpster, then a stack of wooden crates covered with a blue tarp. And then they saw him. A man was lying on the ground behind the crates. At first, they thought he was drunk or asleep, but as they stepped closer, they saw blood on his shirt. Not a lot, not enough to panic, but enough to freeze them in place. "Is he dead?" Elias whispered. Javi knelt down slowly. "No, he's breathing." The man's face was familiar. Too familiar. Malik gasped. "No way. Is that Keanu Reeves?" They all stared. It was. His hair was wet and matted, his face was pale. There was a bruise near his temple, and he looked like he had been hit. Maybe more than once. "What happened to him?" Elias asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Javi said. "But he needs help. Most people in their shoes might have run. They were just kids. They didn't have phones, they didn't have parents to call. They didn't have money for a cab or an Uber. But what they did have, what they always had, was each other, and a decision to care even when the world didn't." Malik looked around. Someone could come back. Whoever did this might still be close. "We can't leave him here," Elias said. Javi looked down at Keanu, whose eyelids fluttered slightly, his breathing uneven. "No, we're not leaving him." So they did something nobody expected. They moved fast, working together like they had when they'd built shelter from broken doors and cardboard. Javi propped up Keanu's head with his jacket. Malik checked for more wounds. Elias ran back to the street and waved at cars until a delivery driver slowed down. The driver was hesitant at first until he saw the man lying motionless. When he realized who it was, his face changed. "That's... Oh my God," the driver whispered. "Get in." The boys helped lift Keanu into the back seat. The driver sped, off toward the nearest hospital. None of the boys went with them. They didn't want to get questioned or taken in. They'd done what they could. They stood in the rain, watching the red tail lights fade into the distance. "You think he'll be okay?" Elias asked. "I hope so," Javi said softly. He looked scared. They walked home in silence. The next day, the story was everywhere. Keanu Reeves found injured behind downtown alley. Rushed to hospital. News reports said he had been followed by 2 men after filming late at night. They tried to rob him. When he resisted, they beat him and left him in the alley. The police hadn't found the attackers yet, but someone, 3 boys, had saved him. And nobody knew who they were. Keanu did, because when he woke up in the hospital, bruised and aching, the first thing he remembered was a voice. A soft voice saying, "You're gonna be okay, mister." He remembered their faces. Young, kind, not afraid to help, and he wasn't going to forget them. What happened next would not only change their lives, it would show the world what real kindness means. The search that shook the city, the morning after his release from the hospital, Keanu Reeves sat on the edge of his hotel bed, staring at the floor. His body ached in places he didn't even know could hurt, but his mind was sharp, locked on the 3 young faces that had saved his life. Their voices echoed in his memory, full of fear, but also full of something rare: compassion. He kept thinking about one moment, a small hand pulling a tarp off his legs, another placing something soft behind his neck. Someone had said, "Don't worry, mister, we got you." Then everything went dark again. He looked down at the hospital bracelet still on his wrist. Doctors had said he was lucky. The blow to his head could have done real damage. He'd lost consciousness for hours. But those boys, they changed everything. Keanu didn't just want to thank them. He had to. He called his assistant, Chloe, a sharp and warm-hearted woman who'd worked with him for years. She rushed into his suite when she heard his voice again. "Thank God you're all right," she said, almost crying. "I was so scared." "I need your help," Keanu interrupted gently. "Find them." "The men who attacked you?" "No," Keanu said firmly. "The boys who saved me." Chloe paused. "You remember them?" "Every detail. 3 of them. Young. They didn't ask for anything. They just helped me. And then they disappeared." She nodded slowly. "I'll start right away." Within hours, the city of Los Angeles buzzed with a new story. Keanu Reeves searches for mysterious boys who saved his life. "They're heroes," actor says. "I want to find them." Every news station covered it. Interviews, headlines, social media clips, all asking the same question: who were these boys? And why hadn't they come forward? Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of a broken neighborhood, Javi, Malik, and Elias sat huddled on the steps of an old laundromat, staring at a cracked phone screen. Elias's older cousin had shown them the news story. The video of Keanu's face, bandaged but smiling, replayed again and again. "He's looking for us," Elias whispered. Malik looked nervous. "Should we say something?" Javi shook his head. "What for? We didn't do it to be on TV." "But what if he needs to know?" Malik asked. Maybe he wants to help." "People like him don't help kids like us," Javi muttered. "They forget." Elias looked down at his torn sneakers. But he didn't forget. Across town, Chloe was working non-stop. She traced the alley, pulled security footage, interviewed the delivery driver who had helped. And finally, she found something. "There's a corner store 3 blocks from the alley," she told Keanu. "An old camera caught 3 boys running out around the time you were found. It's grainy, but I think we're close." Keanu leaned forward. "Can we find them?" "If they're still in the area, yes." That afternoon, Keanu did something nobody expected. He got into a black SUV with no cameras, no crew, no bodyguards. Just him and Chloe. They drove into the heart of the broken streets, the forgotten places most stars never saw. The car slowed at the corner where the camera had caught the boys. Keanu stepped out. People noticed immediately. Windows opened. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Is that Keanu Reeves? What's he doing here? Did something happen again?" But Keanu wasn't looking for fame. He walked down the sidewalk with slow steps, scanning every alley, every face. His heart was pounding, not from fear but from hope. Then he saw them. Across the street, sitting near a busted vending machine, were 3 boys. One of them, the tallest, was telling a story with his hands, the others listening like always. Keanu stopped. His breath caught. "It's them," he said. He crossed the street. The boys looked up and froze. Elias dropped his juice bottle. Malik blinked like he was seeing a ghost. Javi stood slowly, his shoulders tensing like he expected trouble. But Keanu smiled. A tired, grateful, deeply human smile. "You saved my life," he said. For a long second, nobody moved. Then Elias whispered, "We didn't think you'd find us." "I had to," Keanu said. "Because you three that you didn't just help me. You reminded me of something important." Malik tilted his head. "What's that?" "That kindness still exists," Keanu said softly. "Even when it costs something. Even when the world doesn't notice." The boys looked at each other. Javi crossed his arms. "We didn't do it for anything." "I know," Keanu said, "but that's exactly why it matters." Keanu sat down beside them, right there on the dirty pavement, ignoring the people filming with their phones, ignoring the shocked stares. He talked with them, asked their names, their stories, how they lived, where they slept, what they dreamed about. Javi spoke carefully. Malik opened up slowly. Elias, with his quiet courage, smiled the most. And then Keanu asked a question that would change everything. "Would you let me do something for you?" "Like what?" Javi asked suspiciously. "Anything you need," Keanu said. "School, food, a safe place. Not because you asked, but because it's time someone showed up for you." The boys didn't speak. They had been let down before, by systems, by promises, by people who smiled once and disappeared forever. But Keanu Reeves, something in his voice felt different. Not like a celebrity, not like a rich man, but like someone who understood loneliness, pain, struggle, and who meant every word. That day, Keanu didn't just find the boys, he started something far bigger, and none of them had any idea how much their lives were about to change. A door they never thought would open the next morning. Something strange happened in the boys' neighborhood. Not strange like the usual broken fire hydrant flooding the street, not like the distant sound of sirens or a stray dog chasing a broken-down ice cream truck. This was something good strange. A big black van pulled up quietly to the corner where Javi, Malik, and Elias always met after sunrise. But instead of men, in suits or security, outstepped Keanu Reeves, alone wearing jeans, a hoodie, and carrying a backpack. He crossed the cracked pavement like he belonged there. And in a way, he did now. The boys were waiting. They'd stayed up most of the night talking about what happened. None of them really slept. Not because they were scared, but because something deep inside them was changing. Hope was not a feeling they were used to. But now, it was starting to grow. Keanu smiled when he saw them. "Ready for a little trip?" "Where to?" Malik asked. "Someplace warm, safe, with hot breakfast," Keanu said. "And no, you don't have to earn it. Just come." The boys looked at each other. Then they nodded. They got into the van. As they drove, Keanu told them stories, not about movie sets or awards, but about sleeping on park benches when he was young, about losing his best friend, about how sometimes silence was the only friend he had left. "I've had dark nights," he said quietly, "but people helped me. Sometimes with just a smile, sometimes with food, sometimes with a place to rest. I survived because someone saw me, and now I see you." The boys listened closely. Not because he was famous, but because he was real. After 20 minutes, the van stopped outside a quiet building in a clean neighborhood. It looked like a school, but smaller. Welcoming. On the sign it said, "The Haven House Youth Home and Learning Center." Keanu turned to them. "I support this place. They do things right. No judgments. No punishments for being poor, just help and love." A woman came out to greet them, an older woman with soft eyes and strong hands. Her name was Miss Nora. She smiled at the boys. "We've been waiting for you." Inside, everything felt unreal. There were warm beds with real sheets, clothes in every size. A dining hall that smelled like cinnamon and toast. Kids their age laughing, drawing, playing. "You're not here because you're in trouble," Miss Nora told them. "You're here because someone noticed your light. Now we're just going to help it grow." Javi didn't know what to say. Malik kept wiping his eyes like he had dust in them. Elias held onto his jacket, too scared to let go, until one of the kids smiled at him and offered a donut. They stayed that night and the next and then a week. Every day Keanu came to visit. He didn't come as a star. He came as a friend. Sometimes he brought books. Sometimes he just sat on the floor with them, playing cards, listening, laughing, never rushing, never treating them like a project. Just being there. One morning, Javi finally asked him, "Why us? There are so many kids out there." Keanu looked him in the eye. "Because you helped me without knowing who I was. That kind of heart is rare, and it deserves a chance to rise." A month passed. The boys changed, not into different people, but into who they were always meant to be. Javi, once hard and guarded, started writing poems. Long ones about alleys and stars. Malik joined the robotics class and built a machine that clapped when someone walked into the room. Elias, he discovered he could paint, not just walls but emotions. His art became the heart of the center. And then came the day Keanu brought them each something unexpected. Not toys, not money, but letters. Each one handwritten by someone they didn't know. Teachers, artists, former street kids, all saying, "We saw what you did." "We believe in you," Malik asked. "Why are these people writing to us?" Keanu smiled. "Because you've started a ripple. Your kindness saved me. Now it's saving others. People are watching. People are feeling." And it all began with 3 boys who walked into the wrong alley and chose to do the right thing. Javi looked at the letter in his hand. For the first time in years, he believed his future might be different. But not everyone was happy. Some, in the city, started asking questions. Reporters pushed stories that accused the boys of making it up. They said it was a stunt, a setup. One headline even read, "Were the heroes paid to be heroes?" When Keanu saw the article, his jaw tightened. But he didn't yell. He called a press conference. The boys stood behind him, nervous but proud. Keanu stepped up to the mic. "You want to know what they got paid?" he said. "They got soaked in. The rain. They got scared. They risked themselves for a stranger and they disappeared before anyone could thank them. That's not a stunt. That's courage." He paused. In a world where so many look away, they stepped forward. And if you can't see that, maybe you've forgotten what real heroes look like. The room went silent. The story went viral, again. But this time, no one questioned it, and the world started listening. Because these boys had done something few dared to do. They didn't save a star. They saved a man. And now, that man was making sure the world would never forget their names. The stage they never asked for, spring came early to Los Angeles that year. The cold winds softened, and warm sunlight returned to the city's cracked streets and silent corners. But something else was changing too, something deeper. All across the city people were talking, not about scandals or stars or breaking news, but about 3 boys who chose to help when no one else did. And now, the world wanted to meet them. Javi. Malik and Elias didn't understand it at first. They still woke up early. They still tied their worn shoes the same way. They still ate toast and scrambled eggs in the center's kitchen like any other kid. But things around them began to shift. One morning, Miss Nora walked in holding a thick envelope with the official seal of the city of Los Angeles on it. She smiled gently as she handed it to Javi. "What's this?" Javi asked. "Open it." He did. Slowly, carefully, like whatever was inside might disappear if he wasn't gentle. It was a formal invitation, typed in neat black letters. "Dear Javier Rodriguez, Malik Carter, and Elias Danvers, on behalf of the City Council, the Mayor's Office, and the people of Los Angeles, we would like to honor you at the annual Civic Heroes Gala this Saturday evening." Malik's eyes widened. "A gala?" Elias whispered. "We don't even own nice shoes." But Miss Nora chuckled. You don't need fancy shoes to walk into a room you've earned. And besides, someone already thought of that. Later that afternoon, Keanu arrived with 3 boxes, each marked with a name. Inside were tailored suits, shining shoes, and handwritten notes. Xavi's note read, "You wore courage that night. This is just fabric." Malik's note said, "Some people build machines. You built hope." Elias's note ended with, "The world is finally seeing your colors." They stood there in silence, holding the clothes against their chests. No one spoke for a long time, and when the night came, the night of the gala, they walked in together. Keanu was waiting by the entrance, dressed in a sleek black suit, but he stepped back when he saw them. "You 3, he said with a proud smile, "look like the future." As they entered the grand hall, the crowd turned. People stood. Cameras flashed. Not in mockery, not in pity, but in awe. The mayor gave a speech. Local leaders gave plaques and medals. Someone even played a short video showing pictures of the boys growing up, their stories retold with soft music and gentle narration. The crowd was moved. Some wiped away tears. But the moment that changed everything came next. A young girl from the audience stood up. She was maybe 10, maybe younger. She had curly hair and wore a second-hand dress. She held a microphone with shaking hands and said, "My brother was scared to walk home alone, but now he says he wants to be like them." The room fell silent. And, in that silence, Javi stood up. For the first time ever in front of so many people, he spoke with a voice that didn't shake. "We didn't mean to be heroes," he said. "We were just scared kids, but scared kids can still do good things. You don't have to be famous, you don't have to be rich, you just have to care." People clapped, then stood, then cried. But the real surprise came the next day. Keanu invited them back to his home. Not the big mansion in the hills, but a quieter place by the edge of the city. He sat with them on the porch, under the golden morning light. "I want to show you something," he said, pulling out a folder. Inside were papers, blueprints, and plans. It was a project he had started months ago but never finished. This, he said, was meant to be a film. About survival, about kindness, about courage. But I never found the right ending. Until I met you. The boys leaned in. Keanu smiled. "I want to make it. With your story, with your voices. Not for profit, not for fame, but so kids around the world will know they matter. Even when they're small, even when the world forgets them." Javi's eyes widened. "You want to make a movie? About us?" "Only if you say yes." They were quiet for a long time. Then Malik said softly, "Will it help other kids like us?" "That's the plan," Elias whispered. "Then let's do it." A few months later, filming began, but not the Hollywood way. No lights in their faces, no fake smiles. Keanu made sure everything was honest. Real. The boys helped write scenes, choose locations, even act out some parts, though none of them ever expected to see themselves on screen. The film's name? The Alley of Light. When it released, it wasn't just a hit, it was a movement. Schools screened it. Shelters played it. Kids in faraway cities whispered, "I want to be brave like them." A line from Javi's speech became a quote on posters across the world. Scared kids can still do good things. And the ripple kept spreading. Funding came in for shelters. More youth centers opened. Thousands of people donated, inspired by the story of 3 boys who helped a man in the rain without knowing who he was, and who in turn helped change the lives of millions. But the most powerful moment came quietly. Months later, a letter arrived at the Haven house. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a message. "I was the man who tried to rob him that night. I've been lost for a long time. But your story, it broke something in me. I turned myself in, and for the first time in years I feel human again." They passed the letter around in silence. "Do we forgive him?" Elias asked. Javi nodded, slowly. "If our story can heal, then yeah, we forgive," Malik added. Maybe it's not just about saving Keanu. Maybe it's about saving who we all could be. Keanu, standing at the doorway, said softly, "And that's why the world will never forget your names." The promise they made to the world the summer after the film's release, something unbelievable happened. It wasn't just that the alley of light was being shown in schools around the country. It wasn't just that celebrities were reposting clips and quoting Javi's line about scared kids doing good things. It was something deeper, something quiet, something life-changing. The three boys, Javi, Malik, and Elias, had become more than just the kids who saved Keanu Reeves. They had become symbols of something people didn't even know they were missing: honesty, humility, kindness without cameras. And now the world wanted more. Interviews, podcasts, speeches, offers, brands trying to give them money, agents asking if they'd sign deals. Producers from networks offered them their own show, but they turned most of it down. Not because they were ungrateful, because they remembered where they came from. "We're not famous," Javi said in one interview. "We're just finally seen." Keanu watched quietly, supporting them from the side, never taking the spotlight. He'd call them often, visit the Haven House, and meet them at the old park where they used to sit and dream of warm food and safe beds. One day, as they all sat around a bench under the shade of a tree, Keanu asked them a question. "What do you want to do next?" Elias looked at the ground, thoughtful. Malik shrugged. "I want to build stuff that helps people." Javi spoke last. "I want kids like us to know that they're not trash, that they matter." Keanu nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time we build something together." He took out a small notebook, worn and filled with scribbles. "What's that?" Malik asked. "An idea," Keanu said. "A space, not just a shelter, not just a school, something new, something built on trust, not judgment, something kids can run to, not be taken." He flipped the notebook open and showed them the sketch. A campus with open gardens, clean beds, art rooms, coding labs, kitchens where kids could learn to cook, and a single rule written on the wall in bold: "You are not alone." Javi stared at, "This place doesn't exist." Keanu smiled. "Then let's build it." They named it the Lighthouse. Funding poured in from across the world. Teachers volunteered. Architects worked for free. Celebrities offered donations. But Keanu made one thing clear: the boys were in charge. They weren't just faces on a poster. They were founders. And when the first building opened a year later, it wasn't just beautiful and it was sacred. The opening ceremony wasn't flashy. No red carpet. No confetti. Just one small stage. 3 microphones. And a crowd filled with kids from every walk of life. Malik spoke first. "We came from a place where dreams don't grow, where every day feels like you're walking through fog, but someone believed in us, and now we believe in you." Elias went next. "This place isn't about saving anyone, it's about seeing them, seeing you." Javi stood last. He held the mic tightly, took a deep breath, and looked out at the crowd. "Years ago, we walked into an alley we weren't supposed to be in, and we found someone hurt. We helped him, not because we knew who he was, but because he was alone, and we knew what that felt like." He paused. "Now this is your alley, and you're not alone anymore." Thunderous applause rose from the crowd. Kids cried, adults cried. Even Keanu wiped a tear. And then something else happened. A boy stood up from the back, 10 years old, with a shaky voice. He said, "My dad left. My mom's sick. I thought no one cared. But I saw your movie, and now I'm here. And I think maybe I can be brave too." Javi stepped off the stage, walked through the crowd, and hugged him. No words, just warmth. And in that moment, the cameras didn't matter. The world watching didn't matter. What mattered was that the light had passed from one hand to another, and it was growing. Over the next year, the lighthouse opened in 2 more cities. Young kids became mentors. Homeless youth found art and safety and new purpose. And every door, every bed, every pencil came with one message: you matter. And through it all, Javi, Malik, and Elias stayed grounded. They visited the old alley once a year, the place where everything started. They would light a candle, not in sadness, but in gratitude. This place, Javi once said, taught us that even darkness has meaning, but the world wasn't done testing them. One day, a storm came, not a real one, but a storm of voices. A political group tried to shut the lighthouse down. They said it was too free. They claimed it was radical. They tried to label it as soft on discipline. Reporters stirred doubt. Funding slowed, and that's when the boys, now young men, stepped back into the fire. They held a press conference of their own. Malik said, "When we were hungry, no one asked for our resume. When we were scared, no one asked about our test scores." Elias added, "They just gave us a blanket and a voice, and that changed everything." Then Javi said something that burned across the internet like wildfire. "You want us to punish kids for being hurt? Or help them heal so they don't hurt anyone else?" It silenced the critics. And once again, the world listened, because their lives weren't just stories anymore. They were proof. Proof that even the smallest light can change. The darkest path in all of it, every moment, started in a forgotten alley on a rainy night with a single choice: to care. The alley became a lighthouse years past. The city changed. Buildings rose, old shops shut down. The streets got brighter in some places, colder in others. But through it all, the memory of that one rainy night remained, not just in the hearts of three boys, but in every person who heard their story. Javi, Malik, and Elias had grown, not just taller or older, but deeper, stronger. They were no longer kids hiding from the world. They were part of it now, shaping it, leading it. The lighthouse had expanded into 5 cities. New centers were opening overseas. Kids from broken homes were becoming poets, engineers, painters, and teachers. They no longer whispered, "I'm afraid." Now they said, "I'm going to help." But something else was stirring. Keanu Reeves, now more reflective than ever, sat one morning at his quiet home, flipping through a scrapbook. Each page was filled with moments, press clippings, photos of the boys building a classroom, drawings from children who had found safety in the lighthouse. His hand stopped on one image, a drawing from a young girl in Detroit. In it, 3 boys stood under a streetlight holding up a 4th child who looked just like her, and above them the words, "Thank you for catching me." He blinked slowly, then closed the book. Later that day, he made a call. When Javi answered, Keanu said only 5 words, "We have one last idea." 2 months later, it began. The alley where Keanu had once nearly died was no longer a place of fear. The city approved the plan. Volunteers showed up from every corner. People donated bricks. Children sent artwork. Architects designed it with care. It wasn't built to erase the past. It was built to honor it. On a quiet spring morning, hundreds gathered in the same alley that once held silence and blood and shadows. But now, it held light. A new structure stood tall. Not a building, not a statue, but something in between. It was part steel, part glass, part wood, shaped like a rising flame with 3 points curving upward, reaching for the sky. On the front, carved deep into the glass, were the names of 3 boys: Javi Rodriguez, Malik Carter, Elias Danvers. Beneath it, they chose kindness. A plaque told their story in simple words. No fame, no exaggeration, just truth. As the crowd stood in silence, Keanu stepped forward. He wore no suit, just jeans and a soft gray shirt. Age touched his face, but his spirit was the same, steady, gentle, honest. "This isn't about me," he said. "I was just the one who fell. They were the ones who lifted." He turned toward the boys, now men. "I've acted in many roles. I've held swords and fired guns on screen. But the bravest thing I ever witnessed was a hand stretched out in the dark by a child who had nothing but still gave everything." People began to cry, not from sadness but because they remembered something in themselves. Then Javi stepped up. He cleared his throat, hands shaking slightly. Even now, with all he had done, speaking from the heart still felt heavy. We didn't expect to be remembered, he said. We just didn't want to walk past someone who needed help, that's it. Malik added, and if we could go back, we'd do it again. Elias said quietly, even if no one knew, even if he wasn't famous, because someone helped us once, and this world needs more of that. Keanu stepped forward again, holding a small metal key in his palm. This, he said, is the master key to every lighthouse center built so far. We're giving it to you. Not as kids we helped, but as men who built something no one else dared to. He handed the key to Javi. Then he said the words that broke the last dam of silence. You didn't save a man. You saved a mission. Years later, schools would bring students to that alley. They'd walk past the sculpture, read the plaque, watch short clips from the old film. And they'd ask their teachers, did this really happen? And the answer would always be yes. Yes, 3 poor boys saved a stranger in the dark. Yes, that stranger was Keanu Reeves. Yes, their kindness created shelters, gave hope, saved lives. And yes, every act of compassion, no matter how small, matters. Javi became a writer. His first book, Scared Kids Can Still Do Good Things, became a bestseller. It was taught in classrooms around the world. Malik became an engineer, leading a company that designed safe shelters for cities struck by disaster. He always signed his emails with the line, "Remember where you started." Elias opened a center for youth art and healing. The murals on its walls were painted by kids who had never held a brush before. When asked what inspired him, he always said, a moment of quiet rain and a choice to care. Keanu remained close, not in the headlines, but in their lives, birthdays, small dinners, late-night calls when someone had a doubt. He never called himself a mentor, never claimed credit. He simply showed up again and again, because that's what they had done for him, and the circle of light never stopped growing. One night, years later, Keanu stood again in that alley, now clean and golden under soft lights. He stood alone this time, hands in his pockets, watching as a group of kids laughed nearby playing tag, and he whispered more to himself than anyone else. You saved me. His voice cracked. Then, from behind, 3 voices echoed. No, man, Javi said, smiling. We saved each other. And the alley was quiet again, but no longer dark. Never again.